All right, talking money and business and COVID and everything right now with Winnie Sun, Managing Director of Sun Group Wealth Partners. Winnie, let's start with let's do interest rates, right? So they've been low for the past year, and a lot of Americans are saying, "Hey, I've got not enough savings here, but I really don't feel I'm getting the most out of my checking or savings account." What can they do to really pump up those numbers to really utilize the most out of what they have?
So Mike, it's a great question. A lot of people have been asking, well, is there a high yield savings account that I can utilize? And I said, that's actually a funny term right now because I don't believe that there is a high yield out there. And if there is, you probably should stay quite away from it. But what I would say is this, take a look at how much you have saved. And a lot of us, because we've been sheltering in place, our savings accounts have gone up. Perhaps take 10 or 20% of that and consider investing that long term. Something balanced, something diversified, something that makes sense. And instead of just sticking in your savings or checking account or even a completely taxable brokerage account, if you still have time and you haven't, filed your 2020 taxes yet, maybe consider putting part of that into a Roth IRA or traditional IRA. So you get the added benefit of a tax shelter on growth and compounding on dividends. So that can really help beef up so you can get closer to, that 2 or 2.5% of inflation concerns that we're looking at in the future.
And in the past, I would say, well, what about a CD? But I heard CD rates have just kind of dropped off the chart, and it's not even worth it.
Yeah. In most cases, you're looking at rates significantly less than 1%. So
Yeah.
at that point, you're really not even keeping up with inflation. Inflation generally is about 2 to 2.5%. So that's really our bogey.
I want to ask you about COVID-19 and credit card use. Over the past year, I mean, my own personal experience, I feel like I'm not using them as much, because we have been able to save money. We're not going on trips. You don't get the miles. Overall, when you put two and two together, what's it been like over the past year when it comes to credit card use?
Well, this is really interesting. It's really a survey that showed that, in fact, credit card use is down significantly, but in one population in particular, and that's Generation Z. Generation Z has gone to in the 20% usage of credit cards down to basically almost over 50% just say like they don't even use their credit cards at all. I would say that, that that's okay if your comfort level is you prefer to use debit cards or you prefer to use check or cash. That's okay. But I would say long term, having a credit card does make a lot of sense. I think you should get comfortable using them occasionally, regularly, even once a month, just to continue to build that credit history. Just make sure that you have it set on 100% auto pay each month so you don't miss any payments. And I still think it's critical because we need to build credit history
Right.
for when we want to buy a house down the road or anything else.
Yeah, good point. Hey, I just saw as we start this new week, the national eviction ban has been extended through the month of June, that from the CDC. I can see tenants saying, okay, that's relief, but I see the smaller landlords, I mean, they must just be putting their arms up in the air going, I feel like we're getting squeezed here.
They are getting squeezed, and we're hearing from a lot of landlords. They are feeling overwhelmed. Like number one, they don't want to push out their tenant. They can't push out their tenant, but what can they do? Now, the good news is for many of them, you can actually reach out to your lender or your bank, and they can work something out with you. But not only that, this is a chance to sort of have a conversation with your tenant. We've seen a lot of landlords do this more often. But for those of you who are worried about being evicted, it's been extended till June 30th. But you do need to take action, and this is an area that is a good conversation to have with your landlord, because on the CDC website, as of this weekend even, but today, there's a form that you'll want to fill out, and you can actually just go to CDC website, search for tenant, and download the form, sign it, submit it. There are certain ramifications to this. It's not like you can just skip out on paying rent. You're going to have to make this up at some point, but at least right now you get to stay in place and you have shelter.
Have the smaller landlords been able to get their hands on some of that COVID financial relief?
It depends.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller landlords, if they talk to the banks are letting them take maybe 2 or 3 months off of paying for their mortgages as well. We've also seen a lot of stores where they just had to make do. Like, for example, let's say they were collecting $2,000 worth of rent. They had to just take $1,000 because it was better than having the place go empty. So certainly smaller landlords are struggling more so than the larger landlords. However, that
Yeah.
being said, there is relief not only on the federal level, but also look at state and local in your city as well. There is support there.
Okay. The American Rescue Plan, I saw, unemployment tax break is what, $10,200
Mhm.
already filed, but should married couples continue to file jointly?
Now, it depends. Now, this is a big break for those who had to collect unemployment insurance. It's a very specific group because it's saying like not only is one person in the married couple that had to file unemployment, but two of them had to file unemployment. Here's the thing: you get that $10,200 of unemployment tax break, but you have to make less than $150,000 a year as an individual and as a married couple. Now, if, for example, you both lost your jobs, you both want to take this tax break, but if you file jointly, you make over 150,000. Then this year, number one, you should talk to your accountant or your CPA and get advice on this before you do this. But consider actually filing separately, and by doing so, then you each have the allocation of 150,000, and therefore you could potentially take that 10,200 tax break.
That's great. That's a good point. Hey, and also, if you do owe the IRS money, usually you have to pay it April 15th. That's been extended, right? To May,
It's well, you know what? That's been extended, right? So if you owe, that's been extended to Monday, May 17th now.
May 17th. That's right. Okay. Winnie Sun, Managing Director at Sun Group Wealth Partners. Always appreciate the conversation. Winnie, have a great week.
Thank you so much, Mike. Take care.